Hey folks, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. So my original plan was to publish an aspect tutorial today, but I felt moved to talk to you guys about something a bit different today. So it will be a much more reflective kind of video because I have certain things on my mind, and I thought, why not just jump on here and just share them with you. So every now and then it becomes important to sort of clarify your approach to astrology or think reflectively about what you're doing and why you're doing it. So in this video, I want to touch on why I focus so much on collective energies. You'll see videos called collective astrology and energetics. Why is it called that? Why am I focusing on that? So if you've followed me for some time, you'll realize that I do have this sort of focus. So it's not about privileging the collective at the expense of the personal. In fact, that's the point of this video, to show how they are essentially just one thing. It's one matrix. So in terms of my work, I see the individual and collective levels as one matrix of energy. And that's just how I perceive things. That's how I approach client work, as we will sort of discuss. So, I wanted to just talk about the fact that we really are, as a species, we are evolving together, and the astrology so reinforces that very basic fact. But I think we kind of miss that because we don't have a high enough perch to understand how our individual dramas in our lives, how that invariably plays out into the resolution of certain energies within the collective consciousness. So for example, people who have issues with let's say expressing the Aries archetype, the Aries principle. Let's say you're not forthright, or you're too forthright, or you have issues with assertion. Everyone who is playing out those issues with Aries, with the Aries principle, is, let's say, contributing to the rehabilitation of that architecture within the collective consciousness. So it's not, a kind of separate thing. Oh, my separate personal issues. They're not separate from the collective consciousness, and where we're all moving together at this time. So that's what I wanted to emphasize, that essentially, folks, we really are evolving together, and astrology does a fantastic job. If you really penetrate to that level of understanding, it does a fantastic job in reinforcing this very basic fact that we have charts within a chart, a master chart. So we have our individual charts, and as always, those individual charts are related to what's happening within the collective at any given time. So that's the thing. So let's say that, okay, fine, we have Uranus transiting Aries, or it's going to go back. It's back in Aries, rather, and or about to go back in Aries. I think I've just done the astrology of November video, so my mind is a bit ahead. Uranus will be going back into Aries on November 6th, dipping back into that sign, because it's going to be it's retrograde. So my point is that a transit, a collective transit like Uranus going through the sign of Aries, is sort of highlighting certain sectors of the population that have an Aries emphasis, or obviously those people who have important placements in cardinal signs would have been affected most strongly by that Uranian energy in Aries. So the point is that a certain sector of people in the population are up for a certain kind of evolutionary, let's say, trajectory. They're up for a certain kind of growth within the collective that's going to be contributing to everyone. So it is a collective rehabilitation. So what I'm trying to get across to you is that we each come in with our birth charts, and we each have certain issues in relation to certain planets and certain sign energies, how we are oriented to expressing these sign energies. Are we expressing our Aries energy in a kind of unintegrated way? How integrated are we? And we have various degrees of integration when it comes to any sign principle, each of us. But what is happening on the macro level is that we are really involved in rehabilitating these 12 sign principles within the collective consciousness. We're rehabilitating them into a higher degree of functionality as we ourselves up level in consciousness. That's how it's been shown to me, and that's the way I understand it. So invariably, when anyone comes to me for a session, of course we go through what, you know, particular events in their lives have to do with their own soul, but invariably there is an undertone in my work of how that person's individual soul issues is plugged into the rehabilitation and restoration of certain energies within the collective consciousness. So it's important to understand that we are all evolving together, and we can take it in a very sort of anecdotal way, in the sense that a father who is wounded is going to pass on that wound to a child. So we are all linked in this way. Dad comes in with certain issues. Let's say he has certain issues around his Scorpio archetype. And in raising his child inherits his wound. So the child now has to learn within his or her own life how to restore that energy within himself or herself. That's just how it goes, that we each affect each other. It's so clear to me that we each affect each other in very profound ways. So we're all evolving together. What we do as people, what we come in with, how we raise our children, where we are dealing with this collective thing, and certain energies are definitely passed down along the genetic line. So it does serve us as individuals to look about our own integration, as that is the only way in which we're going to now level up the collective consciousness. So that's just the way it is, that the individual and the collective are really just two sides of one master coin. That's the thing. So that's really what I'm wanting to convey in this video, to sort of take a step back to see how our individual soul is going through its own evolutionary process. That process is also linked to what is happening within the human collective, but also the planetary body itself. And that's something that you will hear me talk about all the time on the channel, that it's just this whole interconnecting web of energy that we're in. And for some reason, in the way that the astrology comes through me, I am inclined to get data and information about these various levels. So someone may come with a chart, and like I said, I am seeing what is happening with their soul in terms of this greater involvement in a group setting, how their issues are playing out in terms of the human collective group soul. So it's good to just have this understanding and not to get lost solely in the individual dramas that we have. The individual dramas are very, very important, but it certainly does give the clients I work with and myself a sort of peace of mind and a greater sort of sense of spiritual relevance when we know that, okay, my life is not just about me, that if I integrate certain energies within myself, that along the line my children are going to benefit, and that the human collective benefits from that. So you know, it reinforces a sense of spiritual grace, that, oh, the issues that I'm facing, perhaps symbolized by Sun Pluto. A lot of you found my Sun Pluto video very instructive in terms of linking that energy within women to a broader process of rehabilitating certain masculine, feminine energies within the planetary body. Some of you found that very helpful, and it gave you a sense of spiritual grace to know that, okay, wow, in my own individual life, I'm actually contributing to this larger context of consciousness. It means something. My life means something. And, you know, the higher up we go, I think, in awareness, the more we realize that we see the interconnectivity of things, we realize and have a more direct awareness of ourselves as belonging to this group soul, as being an individual entity in a larger matrix of consciousness. So the higher up you go, the more this collective awareness becomes. And we can even think about that in the context of the individual soul, that, or let's say that individual lives fit into, let's say, an oversoul level, that we have these individual identities, but at higher levels, we have a more collective understanding of them as belonging to one thing. Each lifetime is a part of a greater collective of lifetimes that we're playing out. So as we go up in consciousness, as we interface with, let's say, higher spiritual realms of understanding, we're able to see the macro perspective, and that macro perspective involves more than just the individual. So I'm not trying to advocate for some kind of, oh, we're all one philosophy that's kind of empty and trite. I'm saying that in a very concrete way, folks, there is just this way, a very concrete way in which our individual lives matter in the broader scheme of things. And don't think that your individual life is separate from where we are as a collective. And if you're here on this planet, in this timeline, it means you are very deliberate about being here in terms of what your soul is doing within this collective time. So all of what's happening now, the agreement that your soul has to be involved in this layer or level or time period in which certain consciousness dynamics are playing themselves out on the planet, and we're here to rehabilitate them. So in terms of the actual zodiac itself and these archetypal 12 energies, Aries down to Pisces, what's been shown to me quite clearly is that we are coming in and rehabilitating these archetypal energies. We're rehabilitating these principles, and these principles, this master group of 12, this master group of 12 principles belongs to an overarching energy architecture that we're participating in as human beings. And as we come in with various levels of integration in relation to these 12 archetypes or principles of energy, as we come in with various degrees of integration where we are fixing, we are rehabilitating them into a higher functioning from Aries down to Pisces. So that's what has been shown to me as well. And I see the blueprint of that in my work. So just to essentially, I guess what I'm trying to do is to affirm your own existence, affirm what you're going through in your own individual life, affirming that and wanting you to see that it doesn't matter in the scheme of things, and to point you toward perhaps thinking about the astrology in that context, that very much the astrology points us to the fact that it's just one thing. Your chart, your individual chart is always interacting with the broader context of consciousness. You matter in the scheme of things. What you do, how you heal is involved in this collective process of rehabilitation that we are going through as a whole, as a human species. So, invariably, again, my work will just take that kind of a focus. And people who work with me tend to have a consciousness of that, or for some reason I attract people who also have this understanding or even this desire to make themselves relevant in a deliberate way to how certain energies are being restored on the planet. They want to contribute to the collective healing. And of course, I mean, everyone is doing that, if they want to or not. We're all just, by virtue of being here, involved in this collective process. But some people have a more deliberate or conscious awareness of their involvement within a broader context of collective healing. So if you see me using these terms, talking about in the collective consciousness, it's probably something I mention in most videos, certainly in the monthly videos I do. You're definitely now, I guess, given a better context for why I choose to describe it in that way, or why I am led to, or why the tone of my own work, takes that kind of shape. So it's not about pitting the individual against the collective. It's just showing us how our personal psychological issues, our soul issues on the individual level are linked to this broader collective thing we have going on. So that's it from me, folks, just to explain to you a bit about my approach and to reflect on the astrology a little bit. So yeah, that's really all from me today, folks. I'll post that aspect tutorial, I think, sometime next week. I'm going to take some time off a bit to enjoy my birthday. So thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate you taking your time out of your day to watch my channel. Talk soon. Bye.